This is my son. Hear him. God's messenger.
The devil don't want you to hear me. Baby, hear me out. Baby, hear me out. The devil don't want you to hear me. Baby, hear me out. Baby, hear me out. The devil don't want you to hear me. Don't want you to hear me. The devil don't want you to hear me. Don't want you to hear me. Where will I be? On my way to hell, as my spirit leaves my body, as my soul begins to yell. My tongue cleaves to the rooftop of my mouth. Ouch! I'm never getting out. Hell's a place of total torment, prepared for the devil and his demons, where the worm dive not. It's pitch dark, burning flames torch you while you still screaming. The devil don't want you to hear me. Baby, hear me out. Baby, hear me out. The devil don't want you to hear me. Baby, hear me out. Baby, hear me out. The devil don't want you to hear me. Don't want you to hear me. The devil don't want you to hear me. Don't want you to hear me. No parole when this place called hell. It's an inferno, prison cell. No TV, no lunch to eat, no weight rooms, no such thing as sleep. Total torment, forever in a day. No time for a party. You're too busy screaming, I'm sorry. Oh my God, why me? Why me? I feel the burning heat. The devil don't want you to hear me. Baby, hear me out. Baby, hear me out. The devil don't want you to hear me. Baby, hear me out. Baby, hear me out. The devil don't want you to hear me. Don't want you to hear me. The devil don't want you to hear me. Don't want you to hear me. The devil don't want me to tell you that God is a God of love, a God of mercy, a God of tenderness, a forgiving God. The devil don't want me to tell you that God is also a God of anger, a God of rage, a God of justice, a jealous God. You see, the devil didn't want me to tell you that, but I told you anyhow. The devil don't want you to hear me. Baby, hear me out. Baby, hear me out. The devil don't want you to hear me. Baby, hear me out. Baby, hear me out. The devil don't want you to hear me. Don't want you to hear me. The devil don't want you to hear me. Don't want you to hear me. 6 feet under ain't your last stop. Judgment is where your knees will drop. If your name ain't found in the book of life, you're cast into the lake of fire, second death. That's right. It's painful, it ain't easy. Burning for eternity in the burning flames. Should've called on his name, now you in pain. Lost in the fizzames, on one of shizzames. The devil don't want you to hear me. Baby, hear me out. Baby, hear me out. The devil don't want you to hear me. Baby, hear me out. Baby, hear me out. The devil don't want you to hear me. Don't want you to hear me. The devil don't want you to hear me. Don't want you to hear me. The devil don't want
This is
you
my
to
son.
hear me. Baby, hear me out. Baby, hear me out.
God's
The devil
messenger.
don't want you to hear me. Baby, hear me out. Baby, hear me out. The devil don't want you to hear me. Don't want you to hear me. The devil don't want you to hear me. Don't want you to hear me. The devil don't want you to hear me. Baby, hear me out. Baby, hear me out. The devil don't want you to hear me. Baby, hear me out. Baby, hear me out. The devil don't want you to hear me. Don't want you to hear me. The devil don't want you to hear me. Don't want you to hear me.
Yeah. I handle business with business while stuffing loud in the swish. Party women with women while mixing coke in the liquor. And this year is our year, we strike a pose for the picture. Cause when they throw us the ball, they gonna bring out the kicker. Put up sevens like soda, touching down like a champ. Cause when we step off the plane, the crowd be turned to big amp. So who's leading the nation? We Malcolm X in them out. Assassination ain't cool, so we gon' blow up the house. Take our Congress to war, since they like it so much. And bring our soldiers back home to spark the Afghani Dutch. We coming through in the clutch, and so they call us the closers. Must be next up in line because nobody's as close as we are. Hey, see, we are to the top. What the sun is the blackness. If you heard something different, your information's inaccurate. We are. We beats in the game because we monsters in practice. And they said do it big, so your boy with Galactus. We are giants of giants, stomping down on the fascists. We're defiant box out oppression off Atlas. From the home of the Cassius that y'all know is Muhammad. So the fight is in our blood, but the piece is Islamic. We mix the gin with the tonic, then mix it in with the chronic, then mix a chick that's bubonic. You get a real supersonic. Look, it's no challenge to success. We mix with all but opponents, and to put it on wax, you see we ink up the map. Tatted into the coaches that wasn't influenced by rap. We've been influenced to track like the runners before me. Got a fast lane life with a runaway shorty. She got my throwaway shotty, though she can kill with her body. It's Illuminati folk, man, this shit ain't a hobby. LOS in the lobby and we restoring the feeling. Now put your hands in the air if you just feeling the feeling. And we are. See, we are to the top. What the sun is the blackness. If you heard something different, your information's inaccurate. We are. And we can't fuck with you counterfeits. We as real as it's gonna get. Identify with authentic and artists who hunger it. We are. If we get honestly honest, freedom is finally upon us. With people banding together, we growing like hydroponics. See, we got us a nation in coordination, we govern it. To conquer digression, the corporation, the government. Rebel pride and I'm loving it. So true to the covenant in the harshest conditions. Physicians still cutting it, gotta gash it through mutton it. Still licking and button it. Coat my life how I like so you can zip it and button it. We are. R to the top, what the sun is the blackness. If you heard something different, your information's inaccurate. We beasts in the game because we monsters in practice. And they said do it big, so your boy went Galactus. Oh, why'd you stop it?
best of the best. It's the one and only DJ Ice, Louisville's coldest DJ. Welcome to Conscious Fever with Carl Price.
Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've been waiting for. It's rated ice time, so listen responsibly.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to Conscious Fever. I'm Carl Price, your host, here on Conscious Fever Radio, Ice Entertainment Television. I'm here tonight with DJ Ice. Ice,
What's up?
how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing well.
Oh, man.
Under the circumstances, though.
Under the circumstances, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Okay, cool. Now I look like I have everything about to go. Hey, listen, y'all. We have a guest tonight that's going to join us in about 5 to 10 minutes. His name is Bishop Talbert Swan. He is the president of the NAACP in Springfield, Massachusetts. He is an influencer online and a very, very harsh, outspoken, I don't know if harsh is the right word, but he's an outspoken pastor and president of the NAACP, and he's going to join us and offer some comments tonight about the whole George Floyd situation and our title tonight, which is America's Sin, as well as how do we change this? That's part of our topic. Ice, how you doing tonight, man?
Man, I'm pretty good, man. How about you?
I'm okay. I can't complain.
It's tough in our city and it's tough worldwide, so
It is actually tough everywhere.
protesters everywhere.
Absolutely. I almost said looting, but I'm not going to do that for the big time media. But I'm going to give y'all an update that I have tonight on as most of y'all know that George Floyd was buried today. Well, actually, it wasn't buried today. There was a memorial service because I think he's going to take his body back to Houston, from what I understand. It's from what I understand. So, in any case, but family and friends of George Floyd honored him in Minneapolis today. More than 2 miles where the 46-year-old father died in police custody. His death has reignited, as you know, a nationwide movement against the police killings of Black Americans. As mourners gathered at North Central University, 3 of the 4 ex-officers charged in Floyd's death made their first court appearance. And in Georgia, a judge ruled that the case against 3 men charged with murdering Ahmaud Arbery can go forward. Largely peaceful marches continued today in dozens of cities. Of course, Los Angeles has lifted its curfew, and at the White House, new fencing has been installed to bolster security. So, Ice, interesting stuff.
Yes.
Interesting stuff. So, I don't know what I don't know where we go from here, and that's what we're going to talk to Bishop Swan in just a few minutes about. This is America's sin.
Mm-hmm.
How do we change this? Is it possible for us to change this? Change this? I'm getting caught up because I know it's 10 o'clock at night, and it's been a long day. Actually, it's been a long week, Ice.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, absolutely. So, here's what we're going to do. We've got a, just a tribute to and a reminder of what has taken place this past week. We've put together sort of a collage of some pictures. And what's interesting about the merging of these pictures is we have merged these pictures, Ice, with a speech from the 1960s. And what's weird about how we merged this is how appropriately this speech is. How appropriate this speech is to what's going on today. Take a look at this.
In order for you and me to devise some kind of method or strategy to offset some of the events or a repetition of the events that have taken place here in Los Angeles recently, we have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough. And it is because of our effort toward getting straight to the root that people oftentimes think we're dealing in hate. We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate? You should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you? And I, for one, as a Muslim, believe that the white man is intelligent enough. If he were made to realize how black people really feel and how fed up we are without that old compromise and sweet talk. Stop sweet talking him. Tell him how you feel. Tell him what kind of hell you've been catching, and let him know that if he's not ready to clean his house up, if he's not ready to clean his house up, he shouldn't have a house. It should catch on fire and burn down.
All right, welcome back to Conscious Fever. Carl Price here on Conscious Fever Radio, Ice Entertainment Television. What's interesting about that piece is that speech was not given yesterday. That was a speech that was given back in the 60s.
Wow.
By Malcolm X. Ice is sort of like listening to Marvin Gaye's What's Going On.
Mm-hmm.
When you listen to that, it seems like the circumstances are all the same today. But anyway, I've got somebody more intelligent than me that's about to join us here on the show, and I am privileged to have him. I know we only have him for just a few minutes tonight, but I just want to get his comments. Many of you may know him if you're one of his 53,000 followers of his on Facebook, or he has a huge following on Instagram, and he has been a host on many of the talk shows. He's a favorite host on Fox, on Fox, because they like to think that they like to beat up on him. But I can tell you, this man, you would think that this man is from Louisville, Kentucky, and related to Muhammad Ali, because he pretty much knocks him out on Fox every time he goes on there. So, but he is, his name is Bishop Talbert Swan. He's the president of NAACP in Springfield, Massachusetts, well known nationwide, and we're privileged to have him. So we're going to bring Bishop Swan in. I'm going to switch to the home view. Brother Swan, good evening.
See you. Glad to be on here with you.
Oh, it is a pleasure. It's a pleasure seeing you, and actually, it is a pleasure to have you here. I know you're short of time. I want to just jump right into this. I want to jump right into to you, because we don't get an opportunity to get you often. So I want to jump right into this. And I guess I want to, if you want to introduce yourself to the audience, feel free to do so. Otherwise, we titled this tonight America's Sin. How do we change this?
Yeah, well, those who don't know who I am, just look me up. You'll find me. But America's sin, the sin of racism, white supremacy, anti-black bigotry, oppression, and colonization, is well known across the globe. However, I think the biggest problem that we have is that in America, they want to brush by its horrendous history of brutality, bloodshed, murder, lynching, robbing, pillaging, not just in this land that we call the United States of America, but really across the globe. And to pretend it didn't exist, and that America has always lived up to some high ideals. The whole mantra of "Make America Great Again" is the epitome of arrogance. We're trying to make America great for the first time, at least for the majority of its citizens. It has never been great in our estimation because of its treatment of people that are not white. And so if we are truly going to be a nation under God, as people are fond of saying, often they use the misnomer that America is a Christian nation, a Judeo-Christian nation. It's really not. But even if it were, in order to live up to the ideals of Judaism and Christianity, you're going to have to deal with the sin of racism.
Right. So I know, Bishop, that that this George Floyd situation is nothing new to you. I know you follow the current events. I know on a lot of your podcasts and a lot of your influencing platforms, you stay focused. So I want to talk about George Floyd. Let's just start with George Floyd. The shame is that we have a myriad to choose from, and that's the shame in America, right? We have a young lady here in Louisville, Kentucky, Breonna Taylor, EMT, who was shot in her own home because the police department was executing a warrant allegedly at the wrong location, definitely for the wrong individuals, and she was not the target. Beautiful young lady gone way too soon. And of course we have Mr. Arbery down in Georgia. So I guess my question to you is that at some point this gets old.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we're in a rerun of the same movie. That the record, for those of us that are older and we can go back to the record player, used to be a time when it would skip and would play the same thing over and over again. And it seems like that's what's happening in America. That the record keeps skipping. We're changing names and faces, but it's the same story. We go back to Staten Island, to Eric Garner. I Can't Breathe. Fast forward a few years later, and we've got George Floyd. I Can't Breathe. The same story keeps playing out. We get enraged. We make hashtags. We march. We demand justice. They reluctantly pretend that they're trying to bring forth justice by perhaps making an arrest on occasion. And then a grand jury or a jury comes back and exonerates police officers or gives them less years in prison than they would get if they had killed a dog. And that movie just keeps playing over and over again. And so when people see the type of outrage that they've seen over the last week, when they see looting and burning and all of the things that are happening in the streets right now, they have to understand this isn't about a singular incident. This is, yes, it was George Floyd's death that sparked this, but it's bigger than George Floyd. This is about named and unnamed victims of police brutality and extrajudicial murder that has happened over decades and decades, and it seemingly just will not stop. And if America is not going to be serious about stemming the tide of this type of racial violence and bigotry against black bodies, then America is in for more days that we've seen happen over the last 7 days.
Is this, Bishop, is it systemic?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Many times when people think about racism in America, they feel like if we can just get black people, other non-white people in certain positions, in certain neighborhoods, in certain schools, in certain opportunities, and that's important. But they think that it will change the system. It won't. Black faces in high places doesn't change the systemic racism that created those particular institutions. When you think about the U.S. government, for 8 years, we had a black president who had a black attorney general who had a black Homeland Security chief. And yet the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement happened under that black president with the murder of Trayvon Martin and so many others. And we can see that, yes, it's important to diversify places, but if you don't tear down at the roots of systemic racism, the only thing you're doing is putting black people in places where they struggle to fit in, where they face the same type of bigotry. Think about it. What president in the history of America was forced to show his birth certificate?
Right.
Was called monkeys and gorillas and apes and all kinds of things. Yeah, we had a black man as president, but excuse my language. White America told him, "Yeah, you're president, but you're just another nigga. Don't get it twisted. We don't respect you anymore just because you ascended to the highest office in the land." And until we begin to destroy the systems of oppression, then we'll continue along this vein.
Do we need to, you talked about black faces in high places. Do you believe, or have you given any, first before I ask that question, and I'll probably forget it after I say this, but I can't help but to notice the shirt, the t-shirt you're wearing. And it doesn't say, and it's red, but it doesn't say "Make America Great Again." It says "Make Black Wall Street Great Again."
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I'll go plug in to. There's a black woman out of Dallas, Texas, and you can check her out on Instagram and Twitter at Authorities with 2 E's on the end, as in t-shirts, Authorities, and she's got all of the shirts of the movement. But when you think about Black America, its economic power, its buying power is extremely powerful. And if we could ever pool that power, we can put America on its knees. If we ever withhold the black dollar, or if we ever come together to decide how we're going to spend the black dollar. And we've got to remember, when you see white America get on a soapbox and say, yes, George Floyd's death was a travesty, but y'all shouldn't be looting. You shouldn't be burning buildings. You shouldn't be tearing up your cities. America was founded on looting. This whole land we live in is here because white folks came over here, murdered Native Americans, and looted their land and stole what they had. We have California, Utah, Wyoming, Nevada, New Mexico, all because they looted and stole that land from Mexico. So you can't talk to black people about looting when all you've got to do is walk outside and look on the ground anywhere, and that's a result of looting. And so when we talk about make Black Wall Street great again, we talk about black cities and towns throughout history. Rosewood, Florida, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Atlanta, Georgia, and so many others that were black meccas where black folk basically brought into fruition the principle of Kujichagulia, to name ourselves, define ourselves, speak for ourselves, create for ourselves. And we had our own houses, our own barbershops, our own stores, and white people, because they could not accept the full humanity of blacks, came in and destroyed entire black townships, destabilized them economically because they could not stand to see black people stand up on their own. Yet now they have the audacity to tell us we need to pull ourselves up by our bootstrap. But when we had on boots, you tore them off us and left with nothing but ripped up socks on.
Right. And just thinking about that, when the discussion of reparations come up, why is there so much resistance to reparations? Recognizing, just for one example, what you just said, Black Wall Street, and we can think about the area in, I want to say in Jacksonville, Florida, also.
Yeah.
massacre there?
Well, the first of all, if America paid reparations to black people, it would have to first admit it was wrong. But America is tied to this concept of manifest destiny, that everything that has happened was because America was destined to be great, and it was in God's will for everything to happen. They have used religion to justify the oppression of black people. They made up the so-called curse of Ham to say that because black people descended from Ham and were Hamitic people, that they were destined by God to be servants and to be hewers of water and to be subservient to white folks. And so to pay reparations to the descendants of those that were enslaved means America has to admit that slavery was wrong. It has to admit that Jim Crow and sharecropping and segregation and everything we've endured over the last 400 years was wrong. America is not good about admitting it's wrong. It's not good about, the theme of your show about its original sin. In order to be forgiven of sin, you've got to first admit that you're a sinner. America does not want to do that. And so it continues to tell black people that was in the past. You need to forget about it. You need to get over it. You need to move on. None of us had anything to do with slavery. None of you were slaves. We shouldn't have to pay for the sins of our father, yet you can benefit from the sins of your father. When the labor of your and my ancestors made cotton king in America and brought America up from about 50th place in terms of wealth in the world up to number 2, just behind England, on the backs of our great grandmothers and grandfathers, and all of America has benefited when immigrants came over here to America to benefit from the American dream. That American dream was created by our ancestors. So if you could benefit from the enslavement of our people, then why should you not have to pay for the suffering that they endured to their descendants? And then there are some who would say, well, America can't afford to pay reparations. I found out something when COVID-19, when this pandemic hit. Dr. Sandy Darity had done a study. It was a conservative study, but he said that if you paid every descendant of enslaved Africans the equivalent of 40 acres and a mule, it would come to about $2.2 trillion. Now, there are some who dispute that figure, but let's just go with that for now. America said, no, we can't afford to pay that kind of money out. When COVID-19 hit and white folks were out of work and the economy was in the tank and it needed a shot in the arm, the government passed a bill for $2 trillion to send checks to folk like it was nothing. All of a sudden, when white folks were suffering, they found $2 trillion under the mattress somewhere, when before that they said that was too much money to pay to the descendants of enslaved Africans.
Which is unbecoming of the Republican Party to send the national debt soaring through the ceiling, right?
Absolutely. For those who talk about less government, smaller government, entitlements and handouts and all of that, for them to approve just sending money to folks, that was completely unprecedented. And to the tune of $2 trillion, oh yeah, we understand that when white people are suffering, America will move very quickly.
Is that the refusal to have the discussion of reparations, for instance, the refusal of America to have the discussion of reparations for African Americans, is that racist behavior in a sense? In other words, I mean, is the only thing that's preventing them from doing that is because because when you talk about the COVID-19 checks, white, slave reparations, black.
Absolutely, and And of course, the color on reparations to enslaved Africans is about black people. And America, once again, still has not totally accepted the full humanity of black people. Just think about it for a moment. There was a young man who got convicted of robbery and killing a police dog. He got a total of 44 years in prison. 34 of those years was for killing the dog.
Right.
Now, compare that to Amber Geiger, who got 10 years for killing Botham Jean. What is the message to America? The message to America is that the life of a canine is worth more than the life of a black man. Think about Jason Van Dyke, the police officer who murdered Laquan McDonald by pumping 16 bullets into his back in Chicago. He got 6 years in prison for killing Laquan McDonald. Now, white America is sending a very clear message that when you risk serving more time for killing an animal than you do for killing a black person, it tells you the value of black life to them. And then they wonder why we say Black Lives Matter. When they interred the Japanese during World War II, they paid their descendants reparations. They paid reparations to various tribes of Native Americans through the years. America has literally paid out billions of dollars in reparations. They paid reparations to slave owners for the loss of their property. So it's not like America, like the concept of reparations is foreign to America.
Right.
They pay out billions in reparations to other groups, but they won't entertain for one moment paying out reparations to the descendants of those whose labor built America and made it what it is today.
And how do we change that? How do we effect change? How do we make that happen? And I suspect that we need to change the decision makers in certain places. I suspect.
Yeah, one of the most disheartening things that I saw during the Democratic primaries was the conversation of reparations was going on, and there were many candidates who had committed to support a bill to study reparations. Elizabeth Warren, Julian Castro, so many others said they supported the bill to study reparations. There were very few. Marianne Williamson was one who actually proposed a price tag and said, no, let's not study reparations. We already know that America should do the right thing and pay the descendants of enslaved Africans reparations. Let's just figure out how much they should pay. Tom Steyer is one who said, yes, let's pay reparations. But for the most part, the Democrats who have been able to benefit from the black vote more than any political party in the last 60 years, waffled on the issue of reparations, would not commit to it. And their leading candidates, the presumptive nominee, Joe Biden, will not entertain the conversation. It's completely disappeared from the conversation now of reparations. Bernie Sanders completely and summarily rejected the idea of paying reparations to African Americans. And I think, though I'm completely committed to the need for us to get rid of the racist demagogue that's in the White House now. But I think we need to have a real candid conversation with the Democratic Party to say, listen, you've got to start enacting a black agenda that is specific to us, to your most loyal constituents, black women, revived Joe Biden's nomination. They're the reason he's the presumptive nominee. When 96% of black women vote for the Democrat candidate, 92% of black men vote for the Democrat candidate, but yet and still they don't want to commit to a specific agenda that will address the needs of blacks. What they do is they have this concept of a rising tide lifts all boats. So we're going to propose this legislation that's going to help black people too. It's going to help immigrants. It's going to help gays. It's going to help hunchbacks. It's going to help one-eyed people. And oh yeah, it's going to help black people too. But they're not going to propose anything that is specifically geared toward bettering the lives of black people. And that is problematic. And we cannot continue to sell our votes for cheap. And the rallying cry of Democrats can't continue to be, we're not Republicans. I mean, you got to have a better sell to us than I'm not Trump. We need to get rid of Trump. They're more racist than we are. And we've got to have some conversations within ourselves. Are we still going to continue to support a party wholesale just because they're not Republicans, even though they sell us out time and time again?
Just as a follow-up to that, Bishop, Joe Biden, is Joe Biden a sore loser, or has he sealed losing to Donald Trump if he does not select a black female as his VP running mate?
I think it would be insulting for black women to literally revive his candidacy, to resurrect it from the dead, to bring it back from life support, and make him the presumptive nominee, and then him to say he cannot commit to selecting a black woman. He'll select a woman, but not a black woman. And then for our liberal so-called allies to say, it doesn't matter who he selects. He's going to select a woman. We want the best and the brightest. So are you suggesting to me it's impossible for a black woman to be the best and the brightest, to be the most qualified? He has an opportunity to make history. That if he wins the election, that a black woman for the first time in history, a woman for the first time in history, will be the vice president of the United States of America. And I understand that we have liberal and Democrat white women, but let's just be real. When it comes to the white women vote, 58% of white women are the reason we have Donald Trump in office today. And so I think he owes it to the black community and to black women in particular to strongly consider selecting a black woman as his running mate.
Interesting. Getting back to the movement, because I know we're going to lose you here in just a second. Getting back to what's happening today, and specifically what we're seeing today, the revolution. I'm going to call it a revolution. This revolution that we're seeing. The colors are rainbow, right? I went back before this show and I looked at some of the footage from the marches in the 60s. And there were pecks of white people. But today we're seeing something different. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I was listening to Reverend Al do the eulogy for George Floyd today, and he was saying how he was more hopeful today than he's been in the past, because when he looks at these protests across the nation, he's not seeing 95% black people. He's seeing black folks and Latinos and Asians and white folks. When we looked at the unrest in D.C. the other night, and where they were pulling back the barricades, I was shocked, because the majority of those were white folks who were doing that. And so we do see a paradigm shift in America, where there is a consciousness that has risen up among white people, among Asians, among Latinos, that has said, listen, if this is how they treat black people, this is how they could potentially treat any of us. Dr. King said, injustice anywhere is the threat to justice everywhere. Right. And so we have a new generation of activists that are willing to step up to the plate, regardless of their race, and see the humanity in others and see others as their neighbor. I participated and spoke in a protest yesterday, organized in a few short days by two students. One a high school student, one is a college student at Boston University. One is a young Latino lady, and one was a white lady. And 3,000 people gathered at Central High School and marched down to the police station here in Springfield because of the energy of those young people of all ethnicities, of all religious backgrounds that have gathered together to say Black Lives Matter. And so that is encouraging and that is hopeful in this day and age. And I'm prayerful that this generation will bring about a change that we haven't seen in recent years.
Just one more question and one comment. Let me just make this comment to you. I saw something extremely encouraging because I'm an HBCU graduate. I just saw a news flash, and it may have been from the HBCU Twitter feed, that the #1 basketball player in the nation is now considering attending an HBCU. Interesting, huh?
Now that would definitely be interesting. To attend an HBCU as opposed to some of those huge right. D1 programs that, of course, would put them right there on the spotlight and potentially get them to the NCAA finals and all of that. I think that's unprecedented.
But that would be an awesome statement by that kid, also, right? Would you agree?
Absolutely. It would be a statement that says, listen, my culture and my heritage and the history of my people is more important to me at this moment than just advancing my athletic career. And the other thing is that kid saying, whatever my athletic career is going to be, I want the springboard to it to be a historically Black college or university.
Interesting. One last question, Bishop, before I let you go. Is this an opportunity for Black people in this country? Well, a couple of things. One, when we talk about the different colors and the different ethnicities that we see in these protests today, are we finally profiting from court-ordered busing? Because I know that was a time when you were in high school. It was a time when I was in high school. Are we finally profiting from court-ordered busing with what we're seeing today?
Well, that's the good argument that could be made, that busing that was designed to desegregate schools across the nation, incidentally, that Joe Biden voted against.
Right.
To integrate our school system so that we wouldn't have all white school, all Black school, all Latino school, so that children of different races, ethnicities, backgrounds, neighborhoods could benefit by learning together. It could be argued that these young people that we see today that are out here now on the front lines doing a lot of the organizing are a direct result of that experiment. Case in point, the accident that I talked about yesterday, where 3,000 people from all different races and generations came together, from a young Latino and a young white woman who went to a predominantly black school, a high school, that organized and brought that into fruition. And so that's a poignant argument that can be made that that experiment brought about the type of diversity and mindset that some of our young people have today.
Last question, Bishop. Is this an opportunity for black people to start an economic revolution? I mean, I've heard the Blackout Tuesdays and all of this, but I'm going to put something on your brain, just real quick. Let's just say if about 40% of African Americans in this country who receives a paycheck, instead of allowing the United Way, the Red Cross, and all these other organizations that they are distanced to take $10 or $15 per pay period out of their check, if they gave that to a fund just for 1 year, that fund, we can call it a trust fund, call it whatever we want, but that fund will realize very, very close to about $2.6 billion a year. And I say to you that we can do a lot in urban areas. We know that's a dog whistle for black, but we can do a lot we can do a lot in the urban areas in this country with $2.6 billion, especially if it's revolving. Let's say it revolves for about a 10-year period. That's literally almost $15 billion. I mean, it takes literally about $25 million to build a state-of-the-art boys and girls club. So I guess my question to you, my last question to you is this an opportunity, with all the passion, with all the, you hear this kid saying, I'm considering an HBCU now. If it's something that is bringing all of our heads together, is it an opportunity for an economic revolution? Okay with the protests and the social, but the economic revolution.
Yeah, one of the lost tactics of the civil rights movement, and it really was the one that sparked the modern civil rights movement, was when Dr. King and the Montgomery Improvement Association got together and decided that black people would no longer ride the bus in Montgomery, Alabama. And for 381 days, black folks walked, carpooled, did whatever they needed to do to get to and from work, the grocery store, wherever they had to go, until they brought the bus company to its knees. Mm-hmm. The bus company in Montgomery did not change its policy because it became altruistic and thought that black folks were worth respecting. They changed their policy because black people hit them in the pocket and nearly crippled the bus company in Montgomery. That is the power of our economics if we put it in the right places. We spend $1.2 trillion a year, black folk do. That is more than most countries in the world. If you think about that for a moment, if we pooled a fraction of that money, do you not know that black people would be able to do so much for our communities, for our people, without having to ask the government for a dime, without having to ask for a grant or a loan or anything like that? And so this is an opportunity for us to really think about how do we pool our economic resources and use that as our power. We would never have to march. We would never have to have a protest.
Right.
If we pulled our dollars.
Right.
If we pulled our dollars from certain places, they'd come to us wanting to know, what is it that you want? I'll close with this. I remember some years ago, one of the malls here in Springfield was mistreating black youth. They were putting black youth out of the mall. They had an arcade there, which was ironic because you put an arcade there because you want young people to come play in the arcade. And so they would tell young black kids, no loitering, kick them out, do nothing with white kids. And what we did in response, we stayed to boycott during Christmas season, between Thanksgiving and Christmas time.
Right.
And crippled that mall until it met 8 out of 10 of our demands. And they didn't do that because they all of a sudden thought that our children were worthy of respect. They did that because they wanted us to call off that boycott and get those dollars back into that mall.
Right, right. Okay. I see that the time is nearing. I know you have to go. Bishop, thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Conscious Fever.
Yes, sir.
It has indeed been a pleasure and a privilege to have you to take time to do it, especially at the last minute. So I really appreciate that. And hopefully I'll see you next year at some conference.
Yes, sir. Good to have you. Thank you so much for inviting me. Take care now.
Okay. Have a good day. Have a good meeting.
You too.
All right, this is Conscious Fever. I'm Carl Price, your host. You just heard us talk vehemently with my man. I don't know where I'm coming or going over here, but in any case, should I go left? Should I go right? This way. Okay. Listen, let me just say we interesting discussion, and I'm reading the comments, and this is interesting. Michael, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but he says, can all blacks be trusted? Asians be trusted? Hispanics be trusted? Come on, man. And you thought you could not trust Obama. What did he do for you? Well, I mean, we can have a discussion about that, Michael, all night, because many of you all don't know that that when you're president of the United States, you have this power to do a number of things. And some of those things are always done behind the scenes, like regulations. You know, the law has nothing on the regulations, because regulations in this country have the same force as the written law. So, you know, interesting stuff. But I hope y'all enjoyed that. What do y'all think?
Yes, very powerful.
What do you think, Ice?
He had a lot of information, a lot of good information.
He did. He is an awesome influencer with his. I got a lot going on.
And he didn't even give his Instagram and social media stuff.
Yeah, we've got it. We're going to put it on the edited version. Actually, I can tell you all that he is at, and if you want some really good, if you're one of those that spend a lot of time online, follow Bishop Talbert, and I'm going to give you his information. It's at the @ symbol Talbert, TALBERT SWAN2 for Facebook. The same without the 2 at Talbert Swan on Twitter, and Talbert Swan 2 on YouTube. Instagram, which is where he's extremely popular, is Talbert. I'm sorry, at BIS, at Bishop Talbert Swan. That's the Instagram. And then there's another symbol, I'm sure the 18 and 19 and the 20, 25-year-olds know what it is, but it's a social handle, but I don't know what it is, so I'm not going to give that to y'all. But in any case,
Snapchat or something.
Yeah, but in any case, interesting stuff. And I didn't think there was anybody else in this country that I could call on today to really talk about this other than Bishop Swan, because of his background. And if you haven't caught him on Fox News, catch him on. I know. All I do is pass right by Fox when I'm changing, switching channels. I guess I should be careful what I say, because Dr. Kia Pruitt doesn't watch TV, but she watches us.
That's good.
Is
she on today?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen. But in any case, it's real good stuff. So I think it makes us think about this. If this kid carries through with this number one basketball recruit in the nation is considering an HBCU.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about that. That changes the whole game.
I thought Zion should have did that.
I think they all should do that.
And Barrett, they should get like a Super 5,
and just go to the HBCU.
Yeah, they trying to say.
Well,
their fear is that
I don't think it's
they
them.
won't be televised. But I'm like, no.
Now listen, let me tell you.
TV, the ESPN is going to come to,
Right.
if it was Moorhead.
How
or
many
K-State.
times did you see that kid from Moorhead
Yeah.
on national
Right.
TV playing basketball?
Yeah.
How many times did you see Steph Curry?
Yeah.
I mean, let's just think
There it
about it.
comes.
So,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, when I was in college, most of y'all don't know this, except for those thoroughbreds that are listening tonight and watching tonight. But when I was in college, the Dallas Cowboys' #1 pick was a young man by the name of Rod Hill out of Kentucky State University. So, you know, so just because you're at an HBCU doesn't mean that you're out of the spotlight. Today, with all of the sources of getting information, the talent will be found. But I think it's an interesting thing to think about. What if all of the athletes, instead of committing to Alabama, in the name of protest for what's going on, what if instead of Alabama, instead of the University of Kentucky, instead of Alabama in football, instead of University of Kentucky in basketball, instead of Duke in basketball, instead of North Carolina in basketball, instead of Gonzaga in basketball, just opt to go to an HBCU. And if any of y'all are listening and you decide to do that, trust me, there is no place like home, as Dorothy used to say.
And that's
HBCU is an experience that you can never duplicate in life, no matter what you do. And you get the opportunity to go back every year and relive it at what is called homecoming. So,
and you're with your people. I mean,
and you're right, and you're with
they're
people
gonna be
that look
honest
like
with
you, and
they're gonna keep it real.
I just remember at Kentucky State. I remember at Kentucky State. You know, it was just like a fashion show. If you didn't dress the part, you didn't look like you belong at Kentucky State University, because they were from all over. And that's that's just one example of what HBCUs can do, and the fun that you can have there, notwithstanding the fact that most of your pioneers, you know, you remember those 4 women, that the mathematicians that helped the space launch get off? I forget what the name of the movie was. What was the name of the movie, producer? You know? Although the 4 girls, they were all members of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, from what I'm told. They were all members of they were all AKAs, and they studied at HBCU. So, you know, give that some thought. I think it's just you know, interesting things to consider. But we are wrapping up here. I want to say thank you guys for joining us tonight. ICE, I think the protests have sort of slowed down a little bit, although
No.
I'm sorry. Oh, Hidden Figures. Hidden Figures was the movie.
Yeah, Hidden Figures.
Hidden Figures.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if
No,
y'all
the
knew that,
protest
but
didn't.
most of those 4 black women attended HBCUs. You know, so interesting. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of graduates of HBCUs and what they do. I mean, hell, look at me. You know, I'm a good lawyer. I went to HBCU.
And that's the thing, like connections. Like they will have true connections for the rest of their life.
Right.
You know, with
and the Greek life.
alumni of HBCUs. I mean, because Cheryl says it all the time. She just, I mean, and then, you know, hey, you never know. That could.
My man William Jones says major colleges have raped and pillaged HBCUs for decades. Yeah, that's true, Billy. I don't know if you knew this, but we did a report on this a couple of shows ago, right? Where we talked about Maryland, the legislature in Maryland awarding like $200 million to, or was it more than that?
I think it was 200 million.
Yeah, 260 million dollars to all the HBCUs in Maryland because of the conspiracy that was concocted by the PWIs in Maryland to get all the African American students coming out of high school to go to the PWIs and not go to HBCUs. Yeah, the Maryland State Legislature awarded the HBCUs after a lawsuit over $200 million. I want to say it was $250 million, $260 million, which can go a long way with HBCUs. So yeah, so the raping has been memorialized. Anyway, I think it's time for us to get out of here, man. Yeah. So in any case, listen.
So you think the protesters calm down?
Well,
Which one? The Floyd?
I'm able to park my car this time out in front of the building
really?
as opposed to a couple of blocks away.
Like,
but
like last week, yeah, they was.
Right, but I know they're still out there, and they should be still out there because we're still angry.
Yeah, I'm with them.
We're still angry. I understand.
Not out there,
I understand
understand
that probable cause was found in the probable cause hearing in Georgia in the Arbery case. Should have been for all three men, and that's a good thing. That's a step in the right direction. But everybody's waiting for the trial itself because it seems like all of the hoopla and all the satisfaction is until you get to the trial. I mean, we all watched the Geiger trial, and we were happy that she was being tried, and then the jury came back with 10 effing years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, this is a joke. Especially after we had just did a show about the guy, we were talking about the guy that got 44 years for killing a dog.
Yeah, for the dog, yeah.
Anyway, we've got our favorite group back tonight to end this show. Our friends from the continent of Africa. And we're going to let them take us out. Something happens when I call your name. So in any case, Ice, you have a good week. Stay safe.
You too. Stay safe and masked up.
I knew, and I knew you were going to say that. So in response to that, I'm going to say this. And I know Judge Brown is not going to like this, but I'm going to say it.
See, you heard what I told him, Judge Brown.
The hell with the mask.
Judge Brown.
The hell with the social distancing. I just realized something after George Floyd was killed and all of this started to happen. You know what I realized, Ice?
What?
That there's a pandemic in this country that's been around for almost 400 years.
Racism.
That is a bigger pandemic than me separating myself from my family members.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, y'all, the CDC is not going to tell you this because they're in bed with the FDA and, you know, they're all the federal government. I'm going to tell you this. You can beat the COVID and you can prevent the COVID by having a healthy diet. Period. Feed yourself the right stuff and quit eating all that bad food and you don't have to worry about COVID. So for me, I'm going to comply with the rules, wearing a mask if I had to go into an establishment. I think it's required when you go into the courthouse. I'm going to do that. But understand that the biggest pandemic in this country that still exists is racism. And to me, racism is a bigger pandemic than COVID-19. Anyway,
all right.
We're going to end the show with that.
You heard it here first.
Have a good week. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining.
Peace.